Shalom, this is Rabbi Goldie Milgram, and I'm here with the author of Converso, Mario Martinez. Correct?
Correct. Mario, if you're
Mario. Tell us what inspired you to write a novel.
Okay, well, this is my novel. You can see it. It's Converso. And I live in New Mexico. I grew up in New Mexico in the Santa Fe area. I live right now in the Albuquerque area in the third largest city in New Mexico called Rio Rancho. I teach over there. I'm at the high school, Rio Rancho High School. And about 10, 11 years ago, I was taking a screenwriting seminar, and I came up with my idea for Converso based on an old story idea that I'd carried around in my head for 20-some years, plus some recent research I had been doing into the crypto Jews, the Sephardic Jews of the New World. And everything came together and put together what I think is an interesting story that sat there as a screenplay, and then just recently got rewritten into a novel, or adapted into a novel.
So the story comes from your family, yes?
Yes, it's based on a lot of the stories that I grew up with my grandmother and her generation, talking about the old days, which I always found interesting. Of course, my mother shared with me some things, and my father, because I was always interested in where did I come from, what did they have to go through, because there were some tough times in those days. My grandmother and my mother came from a small village called Pecos near Santa Fe, and so we lived there. We happened to live there for 4 of the years I was growing up. So I was always curious to link that experience to the past, and so I grew up with a lot of oral history, and what I did with Converso is I took it and made it into a story that what if my grandmother knew that we were descendant from the Sephardim, and so she shared that. That's the fictional part, because she shared that with me. But as is common to many people in northern New Mexico, we don't always know. We find little practices. We do our genealogy, and we find out that we are descended from the Spanish Jews, and so therefore the reason that some of these practices have coexisted is because at some point there must have been the crypto Jew experience, the practicing in secret and not knowing, eventually not knowing the reasons or the significance of burning a candle on a Friday night, or covering the mirrors when somebody died, which is what my grandmother did. But then we find out as we research that, oh, this is a Jewish practice. So.
And in the story, which really talks about the way in which the priests could either be savvy in their efforts to expand the influence of Catholicism in the New World, or they could be pretty creepy. How did you draw in characters to develop that line of thinking? Was that in the family story?
Not necessarily as much there as it was just history, reading a lot of books. Anybody who I felt like could give some good research, I tried to look into that. So for instance, I have a French priest. It's not very nice. Well, Archbishop Lamy brought in a lot of French priests because he was French himself, and his thinking was that they're European and so are these Spanish here in New Mexico, so therefore they could coexist very well. Not always. And so one of the best-known historians from New Mexico, Fray Angelico Chavez, who was a lay Franciscan, he wrote a lot of history, and he detailed some of that. So in creating different characters, I drew from things like that, from research I'd done, or from people I knew, or from situations, stories I'd heard. And so I basically tried to show this priest as somebody who wasn't very nice, and so I didn't have to stretch the truth there because there were actual incidences of that happening. His death in the book is actually fashioned after a real-life incident in a village in Mora, New Mexico. There was a priest poisoned, but it wasn't necessarily by Sephardic or crypto Jews. It was by a very mean man in the community who had it out for this other priest. The problem was there were two priests, young and an older one. The younger one stepped in to say mass for the older one, and this not so nice guy from the Mora community had actually poisoned the wine. He had even the audacity to tell the younger priest, that the older priest was, as he lay dying there and writhing in pain, that his compatriot, his colleague, the older priest, was the one that had him poisoned. So, you know, I found that out afterwards. But so there was a lot of little things as I grew up that I thought, oh, I'm going to put that in my book. You know?
And the publishing house is dedicated to, I believe, if I read correctly, tolerance, to looking into
Yes.
issues of tolerance.
Yeah.
How do you see this book being used from that point of view? Were you writing with that in mind?
Yes, it was. Yes, I was. Because based on the things, knowing what my friend Ronnie's parents, she was the only survivor out of her whole family. So, you know, you look at a lot of the whole issues, and I think this is where people that Hispanics that find out that they're descendant and they want to return and they want to reclaim that practice, it's because why couldn't this be tolerated all along? It was, and when I did my research, and I even address it here, the Muslims tolerated the tripartite cultures, you know, and so it's like, you know, why couldn't it have been done this way? And I think that what happens is, in the case of some Hispanic friends that I know about, or friends of friends that have really jumped into this with a passion, is because they feel cheated. You know, if it weren't for certain factors, I could have done this all along. I could have been born into this. I could have been raised. So we have our good sides and we have our bad sides. And so, you know, if you really look at all my major characters, you see that. But that's what makes them human. And so, not to give away the story at the end, but as you know, there's a mysterious death at the end. Well, I leave it up to you to decide who the bad guy is, or who the bad person, who's the perpetrator. And it's been fun in my past to, when I've had people read the screenplay, I tell them, tell me who you think did this person. I won't tell who it is because I don't want to give the story ending. But I get very interesting nominations of the perpetrator, you know. But it's all based on showing that, you know what, it could have been. You know, with the wrong motivation, it could have been this person, or it could have been that person. And it's based on a real life incident. The part is, people found a way to get it all together and to reconcile and to continue on. And so then the net result is this story being given to me, fictionalized of course, but being given to me as this parting gift from my grandmother, this wisdom, this appreciation for history. So it celebrates a bigger thing, even though the mysterious death it's kind of a fun part to add in because of the actual real life situation. But